You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
It's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the O's.
It was a legitimate, made sense. It was pass interference. I don't care what anybody says. That was pass interference, offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
And you can win under pressure when it's there. You call runs when you're not supposed to, and Dak Prescott is throwing it in the dirt.
You know, I'm convinced that Jameis Winston is going to have an ESPN special 30-30.
Welcome, everybody, once again to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know.
We're here.
And
in the flesh.
I am
We're here.
exhausted.
We're doing it. Yeah, you're
I'm
tired.
tired.
Last week was a little rough for me, but, you know, we're here. We're healthy, and we're doing fine. And we're excited to talk to everybody out there. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. There's a lot to talk about, too. I mean, it just happened that tomorrow night they're going to have the voting with the NFL owners, and they're going to go over some of the rule changes they want to implement and things like that. And the topics I think I want to touch upon tonight are they just threw out they're not going to even decide to vote on the Sky Judge. The Sky thing's out of here.
Erroneous.
And
Erroneous.
then the 4th and 15. So what do you want to tackle first here, Joe? The one that they're not going to be voting on, or let's go to the Sky Judge. You want to do that?
that's
The Sky
that to
Judge.
me is like the hot topic.
Everybody wanted this thing. It seems like this is what happens. They know everything that we want to implement into this whole deal, and they just want to take it from us and say, no, you cannot have that. I mean, something that we saw in the AAFL, I think even the XFL had some of it too. Again, they had the Sky Judge, guys over top who can oversee everything, and that's what their only job is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
They can see over top of everything, so they got a perfect view, and they can radio into the field down, the officials down there, and change a call that might have been made or something like that.
Yeah, they just basically buzzed down to the lead official, and it was actually streamlined. It was done very, very well through the XFL. I was actually surprised on not only, hey, let's give them props for innovating that, and giving us that idea, giving the NFL that idea to have this conversation. And I thought they did a very, very good job and an excellent job on running that system the way they had it. Sky Judge, if he saw something, and he would watch every single play. He had a monitor right in front of him. He was able to review every single play. If he felt that it needed to be looked at, he would buzz the lead official. Lead official would stop play, and then he would talk to the lead official while they're reviewing both looking at the play, and he's saying, well, okay, so this is what I'm saying, that I feel that both his feet are in bounds, and he has completion of the football, and yes, that's a catch. Sometimes it went the referee's way where he agreed with that call because it was usually all the close ones that they would buzz. But they didn't waste time. They didn't spend 5 minutes trying to figure it out. It was very well done and efficient is what I'm looking for. So they didn't waste time. So he would just say, it literally took seconds, which was amazing. So he would say, yep, okay, we have confirmation, both feet down. It's a catch, clean catch. That's a catch. You're correct. And then they would continue play. Same thing goes if it was reversed. If it was reversed, he has both feet in, but he bobbles the ball before he comes down with it, and he's out of bounds by that time. No catch. And they would just, one right after another. They would go right through, and they'd make that judgment call on all those close plays. And I am sad to now find out that the NFL is not all for this.
Right. And if you want to look into it further, it was something that was proposed by the Baltimore Ravens and the Los Angeles Chargers here to amend Rule 19, Section 2. First was to add a booth umpire as an eighth game official to go over everything, again, in radio and like you just said. And the second was to add a senior technology advisor to the referee to assist the officiating crew out there, too, with the replays and things like that, better angles that they have.
Right.
But again, for him to say, well, we need to, they said here that we need to look into it further and see some other analysis before we actually judge to this or put a vote to it.
What
what else have
more
you seen?
analysis do
You
you
got to
need?
see other leagues try it out before you even tried it, so I might as well do it. Or
Let's
even
face it.
do what you do. Throw it in the preseason, and then if
Right.
it doesn't work out, say,
Right.
oh, we're going to implement it next year.
I mean, the XFL was the guinea pig for this. They're the ones that came up with the idea originally, and they went through with it and actually worked out well. So I mean, what more do you need to look at? What are you analyzing? You saw what it did for the XFL, and I think it enhanced the calls that were made on the field or no calls. It was a better and more efficiently officiated game throughout, and it didn't take time up. That's the big key here, because everybody gets stuck on, instant replay takes a while, and it's drawn out, and it makes the games longer, and we understand that. We don't want to sit there if you're in the stands, you don't want to sit there for 3-4 minutes until they can finally figure out what call to make on a certain play, and I get that, but if you do this could do away with those long-waited negotiations on the football field and trying to figure out, is that a catch? Is that not a catch? Is that inbounds, out of bounds? Is that a touchdown? All those questions kind of go away, and they get reviewed right away. They quickly and efficiently get a decision made and move on from the play. So it's a shame that they're not going to implement that just yet. I don't think they're completely dismissing it, but I do think that they're tabling it for maybe a later time.
Oh, we have Don Webb in the house tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
There he is. What's going on, Don? Welcome back to the show, buddy.
There he is. Yeah. Hey, guys. Harbaugh did a somersault for recruiting a top 300 player. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, nice. Excellent. And he says, the gun show tonight. Jimmy, you got a permit for those cannons. Excellent. No, these are more like pea shooters. Yeah, I got a slingshot for him. So, yeah, I'm okay. Nice. Mike Tackett comes in on that one, too. Man, 2 comments about the guns. And then
Welcome
also
to the show, buddy.
A Jim Harbaugh comment. I love it. That's awesome. So, yeah, these guys are in the house. So it's a pleasure having you guys here. We're talking about the rule changes or the Sky judge that got thrown out. They're not even going to put that to a vote. And how we think that it should have been something that considered again. And, yes, we tried to get the pass interference rule going through, and that obviously was a big egg in the face type of moment last season.
Right.
And you saw how they kind of went around that whole new rule. They kind of just played it off like, oh, look, yeah, we reviewed it. It's still the same. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
And everybody's still stuck scratching their head. So obviously they didn't take it serious. So maybe again this time they're saying it like we're not keeping it serious either. We're just going to blow it off this year. Maybe next year there will be some sort of
maybe they try
real
next year in the
look at it.
preseason,
Not
like
sure.
you were saying.
Not sure. Mike Tackett says, by the way, the AAF 4th and 15 conversation is genius and glad the NFL is adopting it. All in fun, guys. That's what Don Webb says. That's funny, too, because we also wanted to talk about that, too. Mike Tackett is – I hate it. I mean, you might like it. Great. I want to hear maybe your point of view about it, what you like about it. Me, I mean, I think the thing that kind of deters it from happening, I think it's also it has to be I can't remember because there was a thing about it, a 4th and 15. They could only do it like if it was like – in the like fourth quarter or something like that. You couldn't do it continuously through the game. No,
right? You can't do it continuously through the game. It's basically
right. I mean, it's a chance, but I mean, the way I always looked at it, I don't know if I'm an old school guy or not, but I always looked at it too.
Well, we are. We both are,
I guess, too. Yeah.
But here's the thing that I'll say about this, and okay, they want to have this conversation. They're probably adopting this and. The 4th and 15 thing. Well, this is going to take place of the onside kick. Now, how often do onside kicks happen? For one, they're rare, and for two, how how are they successful in getting that converted on those onside kicks? They're not. It's just extremely rare to convert. So if it's extremely rare to convert on an onside kick, and you want to do this from your own 25, 4th and 15 to get a first down, listen, 15 yards in the NFL, these guys throw it 15 yards almost every other play now with the high flying offenses in the vertical game that is now in the NFL. That's like a piece of cake to some offenses. Now, what I would say to that is if you wanted to play with that idea, expand that first down marker. Don't make it 4th and 15. Make it more of a rarity. 4th and 20, 4th and 25, maybe even 4th and 30. Because if you allow it to be too easily obtainable, it takes away from that rarity of play to keep the drive going or take the ball. So,
and I understand that too, because like my one side of this whole thing is if you, a team has been winning like the whole time, or say they even have the lead here, and if that team also hasn't been in it like close enough for them to come back, and the only way they've kind of stepped into this game is maybe the defense going too relaxed and kind of made it a little closer, and that they give them an opportunity to win at the end. It's kind of, it's not that it's unfair, but it's kind of I know it's just unsettling for me for one, in a sense that all of a sudden this one play can make it happen for them. That has a greater chance of them getting it rather than an onside kick, which is like a miraculous thing.
Right.
And that's the whole thing about the onside kick and the whole aspect. It's supposed to be, wow, this was a miracle. This happened. They came back into this game and they got it.
Yeah.
But then one other thing, if you want to look at it from the other side, if say they fail, because it is at the 25. I mean, they fail at the 25.
You're giving the
you
ball
also, for me, lose that aspect of the game to where it's right there at the 25-yard line.
Yeah.
All the other team needs to do then, if there's even a little bit, because you go onside kick, you're not all of a sudden doing it and there's like 10 seconds left or 30 seconds left. Sometimes there's under a minute. So you even might have like a timeout or something like that. Try and get a 3 and out and maybe get the ball back again. If you give it to them on the 25-yard line right there, I mean that's an automatic field goal. All the other team needs to do is then just basically kneel it, and then make the field goal.
Right.
And
unless
then it's over.
You have a really good defense that can make them lose those yards. On sacks.
Yeah, but they would just kneel
thing.
it. Well, you would think then. You know what I mean? It's almost to me like saying
if the game's out of
hack-a-shack.
reach.
If you're gonna go and you're gonna follow a guy because you know he's gonna just miss him all the time, you're stopping the play of the game, and it's kind of just like bam, bam, bam. Okay, now we can get back to what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really like that. I don't like that whole aspect of it.
I get it, but I mean, if they're going to adopt something like that, they just can't make it easy. They got to make it more of a rarity.
Mike Taka here, he says the NFL said teams can use this conversion as often as they want, regardless of what quarter of the game it is in and what the score is. Really? Because I swear I just read something that it was situational, like they had to do it.
Well, if it's like that, then
that's insane. Then again, because the only thing again, if it's at the 25, I could see that one being. If they moved it up to the 35, 30, that would have been. Then I could see like the Chiefs or somebody going, all right, we'll just go for it every time.
Because but you're right. You're onto something, Jim. They could critique this. Why would you start it at your own 25 now? Now an onside kick usually recover at midfield.
Yeah.
So why not have it start at your 40?
Right.
And
or
if you get or your
you're
30
and then a 20, 4th and 20, and then you get to the 50.
Right.
Right? Would that be fine? I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. But Mike Tackey, he says also, in my opinion, I've always thought that 60-yard field goals should be worth 4 points. Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's tough because, again, there's a lot of different fans out there, many different ages and all over. I mean, there was a time before I watched football that the points were worth different. Things like that. They were less games. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what that was like, but when I was younger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
you also got to take into account that today's kickers can kick it way farther than back then. You know what I mean? There wasn't that many guys that had rocket.
Some of them,
that had rocket legs. Yeah, there was a few of them. There wasn't like what there is today. Like almost you could have anybody usually kick a pretty far field goal. It's routine now to kick 40-yard field goals. It's not unheard of. It's pretty common. Almost every single kicker, if not every single one, can kick a 40-yard field goal comfortably with no problems, and they're dead on. You know what I'm saying? So it was more of a rarity for that to happen, 20 years ago when they thought 30-yard field goals were like common and easy. Now 40-yard field goals are. When you get to – and even now, some of these young kickers coming out of college and stuff like that, they can kick them 50 no problem and no worries. So as far as changing like the field goal to now 4 points if they go beyond 60, I understand it's a pretty big achievement to kick past 60 yards for a field goal kicker, in a game environment and be able to make it and maybe or so or whatever. But so far, the NFL hasn't even talked about something like that. And it would be interesting to see what the conversation would be or if it would go even anywhere. You know what I mean? Because kickers in the punting game, they do kind of get overlooked. Let's admit it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that would be an interesting conversation, be a fly on the wall to see to hear what coaches and owners think about that kind of idea being implemented. Maybe they would change it, but maybe not because they're just like, it's special teams and we're comfortable with the way it is all the time as it is.
Yeah, I mean, and I think even it comes down to it too. I mean, where the conversation has always been, they're taking kicking, the football out of football in a sense too, because when football originated, you couldn't throw it at all. It had to be played along the ground and move the ball forward. You did have a running play. There was no aerial game at all when it originally started.
Oh, yeah,
and then
absolutely.
they changed the format again to implement it. I think we had it as one of our facts of the day. I think it was even partially to do with Theodore Roosevelt had implemented some of that to help safety with the NFL and stuff like that too. But yeah,
Yes,
so I mean, I'm one of those people too. Like, if you take that onside kick out, then again you're taking another specialty player off this whole aspect.
Okay.
And but you know what? Last year I think
thing.
there was the Patriots game when that kicker
Yeah.
kicked like 2 or 3 of them right in
Yeah.
a row,
Yeah.
and they were great kicks. That
Yeah.
shows how great that player is and how great the special teams, what that means to people and
But
how
doesn't that
they
take
can
a
be
little
done.
bit more of the excitement out of the game? Like doing those onside kicks, like that adds like a little bit of more of a dramatic play.
Right.
You know what I mean?
and I could see the 4th and 15 being dramatic too, because again, you're not
Really?
exactly pinned at your line.
I don't know.
Well, in a sense, if it's all or nothing, I mean, again, this is your last play. How many times you see that? This is like where it's like, it's 4th down or whatever. This
Yeah.
is the game on the line. This is their
Right.
play. Basically that's what it would be again for them. But again, if they're already on a roll, we've talked about this
Yeah.
already. How about the spot where that defense you just got scored on? You're gassed. You're tired. Then you have to get back on the field again for another 4th and 15. You know what I'm saying? To try and cover that again. And they're going to throw deep on you because they have to. So they're going to be tired again. And what does that lead to? Player safety again. So what do you want?
I'll tell you right now.
I mean, I could throw every aspect at it.
For this conversation,
Yeah.
I would do 2 things to make it better. One, I would start it not at your own 25, and to start at like maybe your 30, and then you would have to get 20 yards to get the first
30
down.
and then 20 to 50.
And if you get the first down, you're somewhere around 50, 45-yard line, possibly, maybe even if you have a real big successful play, maybe you're at the opponent's 40. But I think that would be a little bit more fairer in terms of replacing the onside kick. But unless they do those 2 things, I won't be on board either.
All right. So Donna Webb says, in a dome, 60-yarder, very realistic. Oh, yeah, and absolutely definitely.
yeah.
With the weather, they just had it set like 70 or whatever. You're good to go. Absolutely. And then some of these other stadiums, the way they have the wind whipping and stuff like that, sometimes you can help drive the ball, too, further.
Or go against you.
Or go against you as well, though, too. All right, so let's move into the In the Know fact of the day, Joe. All right, let's bring it in here. All right, when future President Herbert Hoover, here's another president I'm talking about here, Herbert Hoover attended Stanford in the early 1890s, he was a student manager of the football team. According to team lore, when Stanford and Cal met on the field for the first time in 1892, there was a delay after Hoover forgot to bring the ball.
Oh, come on.
Again,
Hoove.
another time when Herbert Hoover has failed. Again, this guy just has failure written all over, and then it led to, when his presidency. There comes the Great Depression right after that. We should have seen it coming in that game, I guess, Joe. I don't know. There he goes. All right, Don Webb's in here again. RPO Carr. Worst in NFL. Mariota, Bowden, and Jacobs. Look out.
Well, Mariota will be on the bench.
Yes.
So I don't know how much playing time he'll get, bearing an injury to Carr. But no, I mean, just for nothing. I mean, we don't even know like what the Raiders' offense. We've seen what it could look like, but now with all these weapons that they've managed to gain over the past couple of years via draft and free agency, it's going to be pretty exciting for Raider fans to be able to see a speedster like Henry Ruggs, who they just drafted, and all these different intricate pieces like a Bowden, or you know, and you got Josh Jacobs in the backfield. So now they got more of a complete offense, and they still have that solid offensive line. So there's a lot to like as a Raiders fan coming into this season. A lot to be proud of and to want to see what's going to happen on the football field. But it has to be done on the football field. So it might look great on paper, but we got to see results. So until we see those results by everybody, I mean, you can hype them up, but we got to see them play on the football field.
Don Webb says onside kicks suck now. Rule changes 10% or less. Yeah, I mean, I can understand where you guys are coming from too. I mean, I understand people want to see the actual football played on the field, and
right.
too also passing and here and there. But again, I think there's just something about the onside kick about it. I mean, even if a team, if it goes bloop bloop and they miss it, like, well, it's over. They had their opportunity. Yep. That's the thing too. I mean, we've seen the Super Bowl 28-3, and look how the difference another quarter or so happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it
there's
changes
so
the game.
many ways you can argue this thing. I mean, you can argue it for, you can argue it against. But, I mean, to be honest, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's what I kind of think. I don't know, especially because if you're going to try to jump into that and then you want to change the overtime rules to where everybody gets a turn back and forth,
but
you might as well hand out the participation trophies to everybody in the NFL then right now.
I mean, we've seen this over the past 10 years. Oh, we're going to change this rule. We're going to change this. We're going to change this. We're going to change this. And then 9 times out of 10, when they change something so drastically, it fails, then they change it back to what it originally was. I'm like, oh, we tried. That didn't work out too well. So let's go back to the way it was.
Yeah, well, here we go. Joe. Mike Tackett's joining here. Here he goes. All right, he's hitting it hard. Brett Maher was 2 for 2 on 60-plus yard field goals last year. Brandon McManus, Joey Sly, and Steven Hoshka, all missed 60-plus yard field goals. A league combined 2 of 5 on 60-plus yard field goals is grounds for rewarding kickers who can make the kick, in my opinion.
But just like, Mike, just like the onside kick is a rarity, 60-plus yarders are a rarity. So, I mean, it shouldn't be like a high percentage. You know what I mean? When we start to, if we ever get to that point where we start to see like, a 30%, 40% of leagues kickers that can make a 60-plus yarder, it ain't special anymore. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, like we should reward them for kicking those 60-plus yarders, but I don't know. To be honest, I'll say this. I don't know how I would feel personally if we changed that from 3 to 4. I don't know if I would like it. I don't know if I wouldn't like it. It's kind of something that maybe if they were to implement that, you do it just like Jim said, through preseason. Let's see how everybody feels about it after the end of preseason. Did it work out well? Did it not really change anything? I mean, obviously, you get an extra point out of it, but did it affect the game in any major way to the point of, is it worth making this change? Or they could just be all in on it and say, hey, we think this worked out great, and maybe, there's a lot of kickers out in the league that can't make that 60-yarder. There's very few. So just like he pointed out there, you know what I mean? They went 2 for 5 all year. So
yeah, I mean, and I could roll actually myself. I would roll with giving them another point if they could hit it deeper. I mean, I liked what we saw last year. If you look at the Patriots and the Titans game, how about that rule that Mike Vrabel knew about, to where they can kick that long field goal and after doing the delay of games and things like that, and then also having them to do basically center field back there, give them no rush at all, and they could kick a long field goal at it to get the points. Now, I think I was tense during that part. And I was like, this is awesome, And then imagine if you even gave them bonus points for making that too.
Yeah.
I mean, that was cool. I love stuff like that.
Because that's the thing. That right there would be more realistic to me to change a rule and to give them that extra point, because then you look at the games that they're down by 4. They could tie it with a 60-plus yarder. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It might give a team an added bonus or an added advantage to potentially tie or maybe go up by 1 in a game to end a game, and that could take away from some of those overtime games that we see, often. Last year, down by 3, they kick a field goal, it's tied, they go to overtime. Now, if you kick a 60-plus yard field goal, if you're able to do that, you could win it for your team by 1 point at the end. That would be exciting.
Don Webb's hitting us hard with some fantasy here. He goes, fantasy has Carr ranked 24, not good. Waller ranked 4 at tight end. Ruggs ranked 43 at wide receiver, and Jacobs 12. I think Jacobs 12 is a little far back, I think.
A little low.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Especially
Carr,
for his production.
I think, again, it's just I think people are unsettled a bit. They're not sure what they're getting.
Here's the
with
thing,
him
is they're just rankings.
Yeah,
they don't mean squat.
Yeah, exactly. At this point.
Let them rank Carr low. Now, here's the other thing that you got to remember as a as a fantasy player, as an owner, as a team manager. You have to look at these rankings and throw them away, because you have to do what you feel is going to be good for your team. So if you believe in Carr this year, which I do believe in Carr this year more than last year, because last year he knew the offense really well, was very efficient with the offense, but didn't have the weapons. Now he's going to be even more efficient with way better weapons across the board. So I feel that Carr's going to have like a bounce back year, from the previous 2 to 3 years. I think he's going to do much better. And if you could get Carr as your backup, let's just say if you could get him as your backup a little bit in the middle rounds or to late rounds, maybe 15th rounds, 14th round, somewhere around there, and you could snag Carr, you could have yourself a nice, backup insurance policy and could potentially be your starter for halfway through the year. So
yeah, and I think fantasy rankings are a little different too. I mean, I know they're going to rank Ruggs probably a little lower because he is a rookie too. You're not sure how much he's going to get
for
here.
Sure.
But if you want to look at quarterbacks, I mean, a fantasy quarterback is a different ranking than an NFL just straight up quarterback. I think Ben Roethlisberger is a good example. He was one of those guys who could put you up some good points, but then also lay an egg 1 week. He wasn't great as a starter, as a solid backup, but as a starter, he was inconsistent a lot of times. But then some people, on the other hand, say, well, look at Lamar Jackson. He is probably ranked up there for a fantasy quarterback because he's a quarterback, and the rushing yards, he gets bonus points for the rushing yards. As far as rankings as a quarterback, I don't think he's a top 5 quarterback.
No, he's not even a top 10.
So there you go. So, I mean, but fantasy probably hasn't ranked him high because he's going to get the bonus points or, things like that every year for your fantasy team. So fantasy is reality and fantasy. That's the reason why they call it that, in fantasy football. It's a big dream world that we all love to have fun with and stuff.
Some people like to smoke the pipe when they do fantasy.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
And it shows on their team.
Oh, yeah. And also, Don Webb, he also said Hoover was what a gaffe. Yeah, absolutely. Hoover, man, that guy. Here you go. DPI was a complete failure, he says. Gone. Rule thrown out. Yeah, and that's the thing. That was one of the things. We were on CBS 6, and we got to talk about this with Brittany Devane. And I said this is one of the rules I wanted to have implemented because, again, pass interference has always been one of those things that whether it happened or not, it's got one of the biggest rewards. So teams could just throw it out there, see what happens, and whether it looks close enough, is there some kind of hand shoving or not, they could potentially get a 30, 50-yard pickup here on this whole deal without it even being reviewed. So when I heard that they're going to try and attempt this, I thought it was a great idea. Just that everybody who had to not implement it, but was in charge of it, they weren't on board. They checked out. So if you give somebody this rule to do it and they're just not going to do it, it's not going to work.
No, it's not. And it's just absolutely crazy.
But it
is what it is. And I'll say this: the referees made that fail. Let's be honest, because for the first half of the season, they absolutely refused to overturn defensive pass interference. They just absolutely refused, even though it was pretty blatant. They still refused it. So they wanted it to fail. They made it fail. And then in turn, owners and coaches alike just kind of threw their hands up and said, you know what, forget it. The officials aren't going to let us have this one. So we might as well just forget about it and just scrap it. And that's what happened. John Turner also commented on your
I didn't
gun
see
show
that.
over there.
Oh, I
He
didn't
said
see it.
gun show on the left.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, we got John Turner in the house. I didn't know that. I don't know why he's not popping up on the
He didn't
restream.
pop up on. He didn't
For
pop
some
up
reason.
on here.
I don't get
No.
that. I apologize, John Turner. We love it when John Turner joins us with the show. He runs his own group too, his football. What is it? Football World discussion group. So he's a great supporter. We love his show too as well. Check that out. Don Webb, he says, I don't believe in cars. Seriously, too soft. Need to play Mariota for change of pace. I don't agree. I'm sorry. I'm steadfast on this too.
Sorry, Donna. I just can't. I can't. You can't.
It might
buy
be a
in.
lesser of
Listen,
two evils, but I mean-
Mariota, he fits the Raiders' offense, no
Mm-hmm.
doubt about it. However, Mariota still needs to develop as a quarterback. You can't just throw him to the wolves in this offense that he hasn't even learned yet. And Gruden's offense is complicated. So unless you have, unequivocally know his offense from front to back, left to right, up and down, he's not going to perform well on the football field. We saw Derek Carr, his first year under John Gruden. He struggled a little bit. He wasn't him. He didn't play very well. But then we saw in the second year of knowing the offense way better, he played much better, just didn't have the weapons around him. You throw Mariota into the mix right now, and you start him right now, I think you're going to see him struggle big time, and yet again, it's going to hinder his development. So I feel like Mariota is the perfect backup for Carr, and Carr is with the weapons that he has around him now. There's going to be no excuse, and I think Carr is going to perform very, very well.
All right, that's going to bring us to our next segment. It is the NFC North's biggest questions here. That's right. All right, Joe. Let's start off with our next, our first team here of the NFC North. Let's bring up the two questions we have for them, and that is, do they have enough firepower to be effective this season? And then also on top of that, are they even rebuilding right now? Is that what's going on with the Green Bay Packers here? Now, do they have enough firepower?
I mean, that's the interesting thing right now. We don't really know for sure. We know that they added Devin Funchess in the offseason to kind of be that number 2 guy opposite Devontae Adams. And that's okay. That's a nice 1-2 punch. I'll give them that. But he's not a guy that's going to blow the doors off on that side. He's not going to stretch the field on that side. He's more of a use for getting the first downs, moving the sticks, going across the middle because he's a big size guy with speed. And that's a nice compliment to Adams. However, after that, it looks a little rocky after that. You know what I mean? Geronimo Allison, he left, so that whatever depth that they had from last year definitely dipped down. And now, Jimmy Graham, he
gone.
left, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't
Yeah.
have Jimmy Graham anymore. Now you look at their tight end
they've got
situation,
Mercedes
too.
Lewis,
The guy that they drafted last year, it was Jace
Sternberger?
Sternberger. Yeah, Jay Sternberger, who I really liked coming out of college. And I wonder if he definitely has to be battling for that starting gig, although he's more of a receiving threat, not really a blocker. So I really don't know how that's going to work out with Matt LaFleur's offense or whatnot. We've seen him in Tennessee. He had Delaney Walker. Now, Delaney Walker's not much of a blocker. He's more of a receiving threat. So I think you could see that conversion happen to where now Jace comes in. He's going to be that threat at tight end to kind of open up the middle of the football field and let Aaron Rodgers throw it right to the tight end. We'll have to wait and see on that because they haven't used tight end in the last, 3, 4, 5 years.
Right.
But after that, they are weak in that category in the receiving core. They got 2 guys that could play really well. Adams is a stud, and Funchess is coming back from a major injury, so we don't really know how his body's going to react to that this year. So that's a question mark. They do have a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield with Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones, there's also big rumors now about Aaron freaking Rodgers. Yeah. Is he going to want to stay with Green Bay? We're hearing those kind of murmurs going around. Now,
what I also heard is that he
Yeah.
wants Jordy Nelson to come out of retirement and come play. Yeah, how about that?
Okay. You should.
That'd be
I think
crazy.
you should. You should just do
I mean,
it.
that's how bad it is right now.
Right. And I mean, that's the other thing, too, is like, maybe he's that unhappy to where he's like, I don't want to redo another deal and stick with this team, because I think he feels that they are starting to have to rebuild everything, especially on the offensive side. Defensive side, they're pretty rock solid.
Maybe Mike Tackett can join us on this too. I mean, he's a Green Bay Packer fan, and he follows a lot of this. Don Webb says here, I think about our Derek Carr thing, Mariota RPO not complicated.
No, RPO is not complicated, but his offense is. That's what we're trying to get to. And Mariota, there's no way Mariota could outshine Carr in one season of trying to learn Gruden's offense.
Yeah, we'll
It's
see.
not gonna happen.
But I mean, if you look at the Green Bay Packers again, if you take a look at the way they drafted this year, they almost, why we asked the question here is are they rebuilding possibly? Is because the way they drafted kind of looks like they almost are. They grabbed a lot of depth pieces here, and then when the opportunities to come up to grab a wide receiver or somebody they possibly could need here in the first round, they move up and they get Jordan Love, a backup quarterback here for Aaron Rodgers, which again broke the internet, and then in the second round they get A.J. Dillon here, running back, to where I thought they had two solid running backs in Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones looked great last year. So I mean, what's going on there? So then also the way they attack the wide receiving core, they go and get Devin Funchess, and that's a nice little addition here. But you've got some other kind of guys that are in middle of the pack, young guys here on your team with Valdez-Scantling, Quemia St. Brown. I just noticed here on the depth chart since I last checked it here, Lazard has moved up from the 4th spot all the way up to possibly starting on the other side of Devontae Adams here. Now, what has happened in some people's minds that he has jumped up so far in the depth chart? I don't understand that so much.
It's too premature for sure.
Right.
Lazard, to me, is more of a slot guy anyway, and if he is going to start, it's going to be in the slot. Funchess will be, this is bearing health. So if Funchess is healthy, he's way better than Lazard. He's going to start opposite Adams.
Oh, yeah.
And Lazard will be a very efficient and solid slot receiver for them. I think Aaron Rodgers will definitely like that kind of lineup going in, week out.
And for a team, I think that kind of surprised a lot of people. I definitely did for me, because I thought they were going to struggle a little bit, because I didn't see a lot with this whole offense out of Matt LaFleur in Tennessee that it was going to really change things here in Green Bay.
No idea.
I thought Aaron Rodgers was able to handle what he does. He's been carrying that team on his back for a while here. But what they were able to do, especially defensively early, defense settled down towards the middle to end of the season here. But again, it just looks like a rehash, and then they filled a couple other spots. Nothing game-changing to get over the hump of what they faced last year, because when they got into the playoffs, again, they couldn't do anything offensively. They couldn't get it going. So for them,
they just didn't have the firepower
I just
on offense.
didn't know if they did enough to answer our own questions here. I don't think they did enough here. I think even last year was a great start for them, but I see them taking a tick backwards again now and not getting there. And then there being maybe some turmoil in Green Bay with this whole thing. Aaron Rodgers not being happy, and maybe we see the unfolding of that.
And that's the big story right now, is what is Aaron Rodgers thinking? What is he possibly going to do next season? Is he looking to leave Green Bay? Does he want to stay with this team? He's been there his whole career and has had an extremely successful one. Defensively, rock solid team across the board. There's no issues there. However, offensively, it looks like they are rebuilding in an aspect. And I wonder, because why would they go ahead and draft Jordan Love in the draft? For the future, for the reasons is for the upcoming future, because they need to find that next guy to carry the torch at quarterback. And then in the second round, they come back and they draft not a receiver, not something to give them some extra firepower, but they come back and they draft another running back, which was not a need at all. A.J. Dillon is a power back. He's not really an elusive guy, a guy that's going to come out of the backfield and catch a bajillion footballs. So they have that in Jamal Williams, who can play that role, and Aaron Jones is just a great all-around running back for them. So A.J. Dillon, to me, is just a short yardage guy, but why would you take a guy like that in the second round? Some questions there on offense. let's see if they can answer any of them for this upcoming season.
All right, Mike Tackett joins us here. He says, what are your guys' thoughts on Jadeveon Clowney turning down a big money contract from Cleveland per Adam Schefter?
I think Clowney's out of his mind.
He is.
He's a clown. His name even says so. Because, listen, this guy was asking for like $20+ million right off the cuff per year. I want 22 or more $1 million per year for my playing ability. Clowney, what are you thinking? Listen, you've been injured in and out of the lineup with the Texans. You've been injured in and out of the lineup with Seattle. You were banged up, and you haven't even gotten double-digit sacks, bro. Like this past season, what do you have? 8, I think, something like that, which isn't bad.
Yeah, I think
but
maybe it was
not,
9.5.
But it's not great either. Like if you want to be courting for a huge big money deal, then you got to be 12, 13, 14, 15 sacks a year.
Consistently, yeah.
Yeah, and you can't get banged up, which unfortunately you are. So no team is going to pay you that kind of money that you're seeking. You're going to have to take whatever. And to me, this was the best deal he's going to get is from Cleveland. Unless Cleveland Browns sweeten the deal even more, I'm shocked that he turned this down.
Yeah, and maybe it goes to, again, because like you said, he would take less than what he was originally asking for, but he has also publicly said out there, especially as of recently, and said, I'm willing just to stay home and not play this year. Whatever. I don't care if I don't get what I don't get.
How many times have players said that?
Yeah.
And then they still end up coming back.
Yeah, they do. But I mean, this guy, again, like you said,
right.
he has always said, I'm staying firm. This is what I want. And it only until where there wasn't a lot of, people, looking for him or interest. Then he's like, well, yeah, all right, maybe I'll, knock my numbers down a little bit for everybody. He's still shooting high. He's still just, thinking he's worth more than he really is.
Right, and he's got the same, he's got the same mentality as Devontae Freeman right now. Devontae Freeman's had a couple of teams interested in him, ready to sign him. He's like, that's not enough money. I'm fully prepared to sit out the whole season. Really? Because you do know you get older every year.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your thoughts, Mike Tackett, on this, on Clowney and things like that? I mean, I just don't get it either. I mean, you want to play, I understand you want to get a big money deal or you want to get paid where you think you're worth, but you also got to be understandable. We've been hearing this about Dak Prescott nonstop. You know what I mean? And that whole deal. We just heard that he just turned down another big deal from the Dallas Cowboys.
I will say this: Dak Prescott is actually, for him personally, he's playing this remarkably.
Oh yeah,
because he's pulling a Kirk Cousins, everybody.
Yeah, he is.
Right before Dallas's eyes, and the Dallas knows this.
Yeah,
that's why they want to try to get a deal done before who? Patrick Mahomes signs a deal. And Patrick Mahomes has already been in conversations to maybe rework his deal. Now, if he reworks his deal and he gets $40 million, I'm sorry, but Cowboys have to really strongly consider letting Dak go or trading him or whatever and saying, you know what, we got Andy Dalton. He could be our starter, and we'll be just fine.
I agree, and I think some of the Cowboys fans I've heard this past week or so have kind of are leaning towards that a little bit. They're considering the whole red rifle now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's an honest opinion or something you could ponder. You know,
you could definitely make the argument. For
all
sure.
That's valuable. All that money to where you're putting it is very valuable here. Now let's move on to the we're talking about the NFC North's biggest questions. We just handled the Green Bay Packers. If you guys even think that there's a question that they should be, thinking about here with the Packers or some of these teams, let us know out there too in the comment section on YouTube and Facebook. And also on Twitter. Here we go. So we got the Chicago Bears here. Now, do they have the final piece to get the offense going here now? Because we've seen this team and Matt Nagy's offense have some kind of trickery plays. They have some great personnel.
Yeah.
I really love Tariq Cohen and some of the weapons that they have here. But again, I think Mitch Trubisky has been that piece to where he looks good at times and then he can't get out of his own way and misses some things. And now they bring in Nick Foles, to which we all know now he's the starter. He was even given those incentives here, and it came out that they are not doing the fifth-year option. They are not redoing the option. So that basically says it all. It's written.
I mean,
in
and then
there,
the best thing is Ryan Pace, the GM for the Bears, comes out and he goes, And this happens right after they made that announcement, and everybody was asking him, well, what does this mean? Does this mean you're giving up on Mitch? No, not at all. We love Mitch. Mitch is our guy. Like, we just, we absolutely love him. They just sugarcoated everything. And it's like, come on, guys, let's be honest. We all know you turned down his fifth-year contract. You brought in Nick Foles, and in Nick Foles' contract for the first 2 years, he has the opportunity to void his own contract if he deems worthy the first 2 seasons if he doesn't start. So he is going to start. And it's just that simple, at least for the next 2 years until the Bears maybe look for their next quarterback or who knows. They turned down the fifth-year option on Mitch, so that just tells us that he's going to be on his way out the door.
Yeah,
and you're going to have to look for a new team eventually.
Yeah, because if you're grabbing a veteran quarterback like that and to go onto your team with a younger quarterback that you already have that's been starting, and you give the veteran some incentives if he ends up being the starter or whatever, and you terminate the option of the quarterback that's there. It's not saying that veteran's going in there to be a counselor, like, here, I'm going to talk you up on how to play, buddy, and this is going to be, that's who I'm here for you to talk to.
Yeah.
No. I'm here to take your job. Hey, it was nice, buddy. I'm sorry, but I got a family to feed too. You know? And that's the way it is. But as far as is that the number one piece now they finally need? It could be. Because the only thing, though, here is with this, though, we've seen the Nick Foles free agent guy. It's almost like what we've seen with what was it, Quinn before? I think from what was it, from Green Bay back in the day, and then it was also we'll say Ryan Tannehill or say Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick, he plays good enough for a team, and some team says, oh, he's on the free agent market. We'll grab him then. He looks good, and then not so good. How's it going to happen? We've seen this happen twice now with Nick Foles. Yes, last year I'd say it was due to injury and stuff like that, so you didn't really get to see a full aspect of what Nick Foles could do. We can hope that this is the piece that they need to get that offense going because they have a nice young talent. That's what I like about this.
They do. And
I like the talent.
You got to look at their defense last year was pretty banged up. Noakeem Hicks, their Pro Bowl D
that's
tackle,
the problem too.
who
That's
was
why
missing.
the defense changed.
I mean, there was guys throughout that lineup. Eddie Jackson was banged up throughout the season. Key guys. Roquan Smith missed at least half the year last year. And he was a key cog in that linebacking core. So there was some big-time chess pieces on that defense that were missing that kind of hindered their defensive play. And then on offense, we know of Mitchell Trubisky's struggles so far, and now they bring in Foles. Now, here's the thing is I'm not going to be quick to jump the gun here and say their offense is going to be amazing because remember this, Matt Nagy is on the hot seat right now. He's doing desperate things. He's making desperate decisions right now. That's why you saw Foles get brought in real quick. They declined Mitchell Trubisky's option. They're kind of pointing the blame on just Trubisky right here, and Matt Nagy saying, oh, it was him. He just didn't play good enough in my system. So now, guess what? Foles is coming into a new offensive system. He's got to relearn a new system. Now, that typically doesn't mean that he's going to be, like, on fire the first year. He could struggle from time to time with this offense. So does Matt Nagy have longer than 1 year? That's going to be the big question, I think, for the Bears coming up this year.
It could be.
He's got to coach his way to keep his job. And because of these crazy changes now at quarterback, you better make it work. Otherwise, I could definitely see Nagy losing his job at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that too because I think during our hot seat section too a couple weeks back, he was one of the ones we had talked about too. Him and Pace too, about possibly be on the hot seat.
The GM,
because the way it's all come out for them, even like the way they've run some of the plays. I'm sitting there watching the Bears play, and I'm just scratching my head at times of what he's deciding to do. And like I said, you've got Tariq Cohen there, and he was barely on the field at times. And also when they grabbed David Montgomery last year, I mean, what a nice addition on top of everybody here.
Yeah, great draft pick.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, they do grab Cordarrelle Patterson from New England from last year. A big special teams kind of guy or whatever, but a good serviceable wide receiver.
I'll tell you right
too.
now, he did a really good job in that rotation they have. And don't forget that they got Ted Ginn now. They got Ted Ginn.
Wonder,
That's all. Watch out for Ted Ginn. He's still playing. It's amazing, this guy.
Yeah.
And you also think about the younger guys like Anthony Miller,
Anthony
who kind
Miller,
of starting to make a name for himself
Riley
there.
Ridley, yep.
Riley Ridley. You got a lot of guys. Allen Robinson playing well with Chicago. Who would have thought his last season in Jacksonville where he just couldn't catch a ball, and then he moves, he goes to Chicago. Now he's like the number one guy.
Well, it's hard to catch a ball when it's way over your head, and Blake Bortles was throwing it too, so you never know.
It's true.
And also they drafted Cole Kmet here from the tight end, so now they got the veteran Jimmy Graham on the other side of him, and then you got the nice young rookie there too. So it's a good mix up there with everybody. So
for Chicago, they have Cole Kmet. This is going to be a battle for this tight end spot because they have Cole Kmet. They've also brought in Demetrius Harris from Kansas City. They also drafted 2 years ago Adam Shaheen at tight end, and that right there to me is really going to be the battle. That's going to be an insane battle right there.
So I mean, all we can do is look at them moving forward, and we'll see how that pans out. The Bears, yeah. I mean, but we saw last year that there was times where they looked good, and then other times to where they just couldn't get it together. But again, if you look at it, just even from last year's perspective, Mitch Trubisky goes out even too, but the question, he was playing so badly, like, was he really that injured? I mean, how is it really going to turn out for them? But let's move on to the NFC North's biggest questions here and the Detroit Lions. Now, our question here is, can Matt Patricia turn the ship around here? And this is another team for me that has been bitten by the injury bug again. And if they weren't injured so much, would people kind of take notice on this team? Because I remember this team last year really being like they were in like dogfights a lot of times. They were in a lot of games. I think when they played the Kansas City Chiefs early in the season, they were they put up 31 points, and then the Chiefs happened to put up 38, but they were right in it again. And they had lost Matthew Stafford early, and that's one of the key problems is the health of Matthew Stafford. And he's a tough guy, but he does get injured a lot on top of some of their other guys. And again, you didn't get a full year of Kerryon Johnson, too, so you didn't get to see what they could do there. They lose Slay on defense, but they bring in a bunch of Patriots players who know the system. Are they comfortable with that? Is it going to move forward there on defense here? And a team that really halfway through, they're around 500 and a little above, looking pretty good. And then something happened again to, I don't know, but maybe it's just because the quarterback system or the quarterback situation was so bad. It seems like they just quit. Because the last 6 games of the season, just 100%. All losses, and they weren't putting up. They were just putrid. Yeah. So it looked like a team that just quit, laid down to die. Now, is he going to bring him back here to life this year? Well, the owner pretty much said you got one more year.
And he definitely has an uphill climb on this season because you look at this team, and it really is hindered on Matt Stafford's health. We still, to this day, don't know how healthy he's going to be, how healthy he is right now, and can he even throw a football? We haven't seen it, so that's got to be concerning for Detroit Lions fans. Like, is Stafford good? Is he okay? Should we maybe look to bring in a veteran presence here just in case? And just like Green Bay is hurt in the wide receiver department, there's not a ton of talent on that wide receiver. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some, but they're not very deep like Green Bay. They got basically Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones. And then after that, they brought in an ex-Packer, Geronimo Allison ends up there, to kind of like put a Band-Aid on this receiving core, because after that, it's a lot of guys that got to try to prove themselves. They did go, and I do really like this pick in the 5th round. It is Quintez Cephas, wide receiver. I think he could develop into a possible starter for the Detroit Lions either this year or next year. So I do like that move, via draft. But after that, there's not a whole lot of depth here. There's really not a lot to love about this Detroit Lions team. And then on the offensive line, where they've had a rocky, up and down last few seasons. They've had a lot of injuries to this offensive line as soon as that happens, Stafford's not being protected very well. they go ahead and they bring in a couple of guys, especially on the right side, in Ode Abushi at right guard, who, let's be honest, he's kind of like a below-average guard. That's not looking too well for them. And then the one move I do like for offensive line is they brought Valatai, and I'm not going to say his last name because I'll get it wrong, from the Eagles, who I do like a lot. I think he's a young tackle who's still developing and can develop into possibly be a Pro Bowler soon. I really like that move as well. But that's offense. And then you get to the defense, and there's a big-time hole at corner, right? Darius Slay gets traded. Detroit Lions fans losing their mind. But they did draft Jeff Okudah, the potential rated number 1 corner out of the draft. Hopefully he pans out for them so they don't really miss much at it when Slay left. They do also pull in Desmond Trufant, actually, from the Falcons, who they signed him from free agency, which I think that was, hey, it's basically a shot in the dark. They're hoping that Trufant can stay healthy for them and maybe give them a nice 1-2 punch at corners. And let's see what some of these expatriate veterans on this defense can also bring to the table. And Jamie Collins. They have Trey Flowers there, who they signed in free agency 2 years ago. He's there. It seems like a reunion once again from New England to Detroit. And let's see how it all plays out. I think they're going to be just fine on defense, but offense to me is more the question.
Well, for me, I think it's even a lot of it's defense, because last year you're talking about a head coach here that is supposed to be the defensive mind, right? He's from the Bill Belichick tree and stuff like that.
Right.
Last year in rankings and for yards, they were 31st. Yeah. Points for 24th. Again, first downs 31st. They were terrible. Again, passing 30th. Against the run, they're 21st. Giving up yards, terrible. On the other side, the offense, without having their starting quarterback, 18th for points, 17th for yardage, 11th for scoring. I mean, they're right up there with some of these, despite not having their starting quarterback and the injuries that they had there.
Right.
I mean, this is what's crazy about this team.
But what I'll say about their defense is they were banged up, too. No Slay for almost the whole year. And that right there, I know one player doesn't make a defense, but one great corner, definitely cuts down that field by half and makes it easier for the rest of the defense to do their job. So they were hurt there. They were hurt on the D-line. I mean, they're dropping like flies. So you got to take that into consideration when you're looking at those stats. So I don't think a defense – you're right. Defense is, a concern a little bit. But I think with them all healthy and with some of these guys that know the system, like a Jamie Collins, that can help teach some of these younger guys that are still trying to learn it. Because it is complex. It's not easy. I wonder if bringing those guys in was part of the game plan for Patricia, saying, hey, these guys need to be coached up still a little bit more. Maybe I bring in a couple of these New England veterans, and maybe it'll help us out in the long run, or short term for that matter.
There you go. That's Kim Matt. Patricia turned the ship around here in Detroit. We'll see, or else pretty much she's out the door after this season. So we'll see what happens moving forward with those guys. Mike Tackett joins us here. He said, he's got some stuff for us here, Joe, to debate.
What's he got here?
All right, here are the teams with the most available cap space next season that do not have a franchise quarterback in place. Indy at $110 million, Jacksonville at $97.6 million, Washington at $88.4 million, New England at $86.1 million, Detroit $51.1 million, Tampa Bay $56.9 million, and Kansas City $32.5 million. Now, when we think a franchise quarterback, I mean, it's hard to understand where you're coming from here, because some of them, I mean, if you're saying Kansas City, I think he's trying to say right here the fact that, they don't have a whole lot of space to give Patrick Mahomes that big major deal here. But so I think that's what he's saying. That's why there's the ... Kansas City, this much. Because then his next his thing, because right here he says, of these teams mentioned, if a deal cannot be done in Kansas City and I'm Patrick Mahomes, I'm signing with the Patriots or Colts. They both have a solid team who can reach the Super Bowl.
Here's the thing. Is Andy Reid is not letting Mahomes go. They're going to get a deal done. Now, I understand right now they're looking at $32.5 million next year, but they could easily make up that money to get the deal done.
Oh yeah,
Easily.
I mean some of those guys they can just cut right away. But as far as even franchise quarterbacks and who you have here, Tampa Bay, I don't know what their situation here is in the future here, how long Tom Brady is even going to stay there. Is this going to be his last final year?
Tom Brady is on a year-to-year
year to
deal
year.
going
So,
on.
I mean, it's tough to
He's there
try and-
this year. He might be, depending on how they play, he might be back next season after that. And then, or what's to say? Like, wouldn't that be crazy, though, as he signs a one-year deal with Tampa and it says, this team isn't good enough. I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm open to his stuff. Yeah, it's just crazy what's going on there. But as far as some of these other teams, Jacksonville, or let's start with Indianapolis first here.
That's a great situation for someone.
That would be a great situation. I think it's a great situation right now for Philip Rivers. I think he can do well there. I mean,
I think he is.
Maybe,
I think he's going
I
to.
think he can even be there for the next couple of years, and they might try and find another a franchise quarterback in the next draft or two here. Jacksonville is an interesting situation here too, because if I'm them, keep the roster you have now, and if Minshew ain't it, then you know what, you're probably next in line for Trevor Lawrence. See what you can grab there. And New England, I think they're going to be a little better than people are kind of giving them credit for. I think Jarrett Stidham is probably one of those hidden gems here. I'm not saying he's going to be, they're going to go 12 and 4 or whatever, and they're going to light it up. Tom Brady in that offense for so long. I mean, there's a reason why they won so much. I have always said, I'm not the strongest believer that he is the greatest of all time, but you have to have talent and be able to run the offense well, which he did perfectly. So I think you got to commend him for that. But we'll see what happens with New England, and maybe they already have their franchise quarterback right there on the low end, on the cheap, and then they can get some other weapons around them too, and that team could possibly retool and be on a winning streak again right away and not go away like some people are hoping they could. And Detroit, again, that's some of these two teams. I say Detroit. And maybe even in Jacksonville, they're
Detroit,
they're a
I think
team,
they,
kind of in a
they
sense.
definitely have to start looking for that future guy,
Right.
Because we still don't know how healthy Stafford is, so that's got to be a big concern right now. And because of him getting beat up, and let's face it, it's not just his fault. They have failed to protect him over the years. It comes, the health of the offensive line keeps getting deteriorated, and because of that, Stafford takes a lot of beatings, a lot of hard hits, and still kind of fights through the pain to keep, playing QB for them. So now, at this point in his career, he's so beat up. To me, it just seems like his body's going to get injured more often now, and then the Lions definitely have to start looking for that next guy.
Yeah, they do. And if you bring up Washington here at $88.4 million, that shows to me that you maybe think that Dwayne Haskins ain't the answer there too. I mean, because yes, right now potentially they don't have their franchise quarterback, but he is there, and if he does get better, I mean, they will possibly have. They could possibly have their guy on their roster now. I don't think he is. I don't really like Dwayne Haskins. I don't think he's going to be that great and stuff like that. He might be serviceable, but we'll see what happens moving forward. And he hails from
the
Ohio State, so he sucks.
Well, all I have to say is that Haskins is not as bad as everyone thinks he is, because he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks coming out of college at that time, and he is very smart. And he's made some remarkable throws at times with the Washington Redskins, with that depleted, talented roster that they have. This kid came in too early. That's basically what it comes down to. He had 1 year of college experience, wasn't ready for the big show, and got thrusted in anyway and forced to start. So now this kid, if they can develop, Ron Rivera is now the new coach. If they can develop him and get him up to speed, I think it's going to take longer than this upcoming season. It's probably going to take another 2 seasons to get them where they can start to say, hey, I think we got something here. So I think there's a little bit more leeway with him in Washington.
Yeah, so let's get to our we have our biggest questions for the NFC North, and we're finally going to get to the Minnesota Vikings here. Is this the year that they go all the way now? This is the only question that we could have
better
for this
be.
team because they pretty much loaded up their team and they are ready to win now. I mean, you want to talk about a division. We just talked about 3 teams that are in the same division that really their wide receiving core is meh. You know, they have some. I'd say Green Bay is even. They have Devontae Adams, which is a nice highlight out of all of them. But when you look at them compared to the Minnesota Vikings, you're almost like, oh, man, you know what I'm saying? It's like when the Raiders drafted Ruggs, they're like, well, we understand why they're getting Ruggs, you know, because you want a guy that can burn them deep, sort of like, you know, that you have to deal with Tyreek Hill with the Chiefs in that same division. They're trying to match him with that. Nobody's trying to match here the Minnesota Vikings here on this because they're not on the same level. You know, they've got Adam Thielen here. They draft Justin Jefferson. I mean, and also if you look at their 2 running or tight ends that you have here, Kirk Cousins at the helm, Dalvin Cook running the ball. I mean, it's like the rich got richer, and they even draft Jeff Gladney here in the first round too at the corner position.
Really good pick.
It is nasty, this team here. If they do not win this season, hell or high water, I think things are going to happen drastically with the Kirk Cousins situation here. So.
Yeah, I mean he's locked up, I think, for another 2 years.
2 years, he did an extension. Yeah, I mean,
so,
but it's going to cost him. They got $60 million
but here's the
guaranteed
thing.
into him.
It's not even about Kirk Cousins anymore. Now that they got that extension out of the way, there's no real concern they're going to miss out. They got to find another starter. The real concern now is re-signing these other defensive players and offensive players that are going to be up for new deals, and they are running out of money as they go year by year. Next year, it looks like they're going to have around $32 million under the cap, so they still got some money to play with to sign a couple of guys. Anthony Harris, you think of right now, who they franchise tagged. They were hoping to get a long-term deal done. Still haven't done that yet. But again, the window for this team as a whole is getting smaller and smaller every year, and they got to make things happen. They got to get that long push now for the Super Bowl right now. This season has to happen for them. Otherwise, I just think much like the Cowboys, where they're going to be financially strapped, especially if they get a new deal done with Dak, that Minnesota's going to be in that same spot right there.
Right, you know, and if you want to take a look at it here's the $1 million man himself here, Kirk Cousins. This season, he's set to be making $9.5 million, prorated at $11.5. That's with his bonuses, which is a $20 million cap hit. But again, so if they win here, they're still in a spot, but it next year ticks up all the way up to $21 million here as his base salary, and then if they don't do it even then, add the year 2022 is the year, because they're set to hit at $45 million, and a lot of that guaranteed is already gone, but boom, that's a big cap hit against this team here.
That's ugly.
And when you're trying to think about these quarterbacks that are trying to get paid their money, Kirk Cousins has been one of these guys, has been able to milk this whole system and get that money. You wonder why Dak's listening to him. He knows how to do it here, and when they restructured it here, backloaded to where they're safe, they've already gave them the guaranteed money. They can cut them if they need to here, but that's a hefty price.
It's going to be a hefty price in terms of dead money as well if they cut them. So I don't think they can cut them. Even with that, even at that last year with $45 million, it's too much of a dead money cap hit that they just can't do it. So they're in for the long haul with Kirk, and wow, I cannot believe the team agreed to that contract with him, because man, oh man, are they going to be hurting in a couple of years.
And as far as our question, do they have enough to make it all the way? I think they do now. I mean, they've reloaded again. They were good last year.
But
for me,
isn't that crazy, though? Is like we always have this optimism about the Minnesota Vikings. They do have a good roster. They do on offense and defense, and they always have. Except it just seems they just can't. They get close and they just can't get it. So I wonder if this year is going to be much like the years past. Is that they're going to get real close and then just fall short again.
Well, I think even some particular players too had made some not played well at times. I saw Harrison Smith last year make some poor decisions in some of the plays and poor play at times. Kirk Cousins again having the turmoil with the wide receivers, like, oh, I'm not getting the ball enough here and there, and blah blah.
That
he
was
wasn't
Diggs.
performing well. Yeah,
Diggs, goodbye.
and he was saying, I'm not playing well. I agree there, and that's a big part of it and getting it going.
Right.
And when you play Aaron Rodgers twice a year, I mean, a lot of times there's a reason why they say it's Aaron frickin' Rodgers, because he's been able to carry the team on his shoulders for so many years, despite having some inadequacies on other spots on the team. And the Bears had gotten better defensively. Yes, they were a little injured last year, so we saw them take a tick back on defense. But they're really in the mix a lot of times, too. So when you play tough teams like that in a tough division, I mean, we saw a lot of divisions to where they have sort of like losing records. But it's because a lot of it is the way their division's set up. They're tough to play.
Oh, yeah.
Even like we just said, the Detroit Lions, despite having not a quarterback and stuff, we're in the top 20, top 15 in offense still, and still being able to put up some points here too. It's all, for me, is the $1 million man, Kirk Cousins, how he performs, and to get that team over the hump, because they have the personnel here. And after that, I mean, there's nobody else to point the blame back onto until the coach. After that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that would be the next ball to drop. So we'll see what happens
Zimmerman,
here.
you're
But
on the
I'd
clock.
say yes, they have what it takes to get it done. Will they get it done? I think the Packers are going to take a step back here, and the
the
Bears
Lions.
are a question mark, and the Lions are a question
I
mark.
would say the
so
Lions
they are
and-
poised to do it right now.
To me, I would say the Lions are in trouble in this division, obviously, and then the Packers are right behind them. And then you have then I think it's going to be between the Bears and Vikings for this division at the end of the year.
Who knows? We'll see. We'll do that when we preview the divisions later on in the summer. That's if we're all set up still and we're going to be having football this season. We hope so.
It looks like
we're
it.
keep doing it here, and it
looks
sounds
like
great. I know hockey's coming up with that whole round robin tournament style and everything and stuff, which is exciting to hear. Sports coming back. It's beautiful out there. It was 100 degrees here in New York. We loved it, and a little bit what we could of it. You know what I'm saying? It was a great Memorial Day weekend. I hope everybody had a good time for that Memorial Day weekend.
Definitely know-it-alls. Thank
Joe.
you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for all your support. Mike Tackett, Don Webb. You guys are amazing. You guys show up every single week. We really appreciate you guys. Thanks for all the questions, all your comments, all your insights. They've been great. For anybody that's tuning in or hasn't seen this show before, it's your first time, make sure you head over to YouTube for us. Hit that subscribe button, Football on the Nose Show. You can search it like that. And then also hit the notification bell for our latest and greatest updated content. You can also follow us on Twitter for the news, updated news around the NFL, at FB_no. Really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, that's it for us, and we will see you guys next time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.